Sports Cypher, brought to you by Gas Sports Network. I'm your host, Scruff Lion. I'm here in the Lion's Den, ready to dive in some of the hottest topics of sports right now. I'm here, one of my favorite guests on the show, Jerome Coleman, one of my fellow good-ass sports contributors. Jerome, what's going on with you this Tuesday morning?
What's up, man? It's a beautiful day. Just enjoying life, man. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm enjoying life, and, I love life when the NFL season is going hot and strong, and then the NBA season is right upon us. So I'm a really happy guy right now, especially because I'm coming off wins from my team, and I got my 76ers playing in prime time tonight. But let's talk a little about this NFL, man. Great matchups this week. We saw some big things going on this week. Just fresh off the Monday night game, everyone probably thought that was going to be a stinker, and then Aaron Rodgers came in there, ended up winning the game anyway. But shout out to my man, unheralded C.J. Beathard, out here putting up numbers against Aaron Rodgers, man. What do you think about the game last night?
Oh, man, I was super impressed with C.J. Beathard, man. I'm glad you brought his name up. I know the Packers won. I know Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers does, but I want to give some credit to my man C.J. Beathard. Everyone's going to look at that interception and say that that's what turned the game, and it is kind of, but before that, C.J. was playing outstanding, man, and I think we got to give him all the credit in the world.
Yeah, man, he definitely gets slighted. I'm not going to lie. Everyone was like, oh, man, it's going to be a horrible game tonight. And I was like, we'll see. It's pro football, any given Monday or Sunday or whatever you feel. But, yeah, he did pretty well, man. I want to say definitely shout out to him, man. But a couple of games I want to touch on across the board from the NFL this week. I say the biggest surprise of the week for me this week so far, the week's done, but in terms of what we saw, man, I got to say, I was shocked to see the Cowboys beat the Jaguars the way they did, 40-7 in a game where I believe most people probably picked the Jags to win. You figure an elite defense versus an offense that had been pretty much asleep up to this point. We were just talking about the Cowboys last week. Were you as shocked as I was for that 40-7 win for the Cowboys? What exactly happened?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like you had just said, any given Sunday, Monday, Thursday night, anything can happen in a professional football game, and on this past Sunday, Jacksonville just happened to have a bad day. I don't think that Jacksonville is as bad as they look, and I don't think Dallas is as good as they look. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of that. But, I'm not going to take anything away from Dallas. They showed us what they can do when they get rolling. When Dak and Zeke are doing that read option, it looks a lot like RG3 and Alfred Morris in 2012, man. Those guys are pretty nice at that. So I'm going to give the Cowboys a little bit of credit, but not too much because Jacksonville didn't really show up.
Yeah, I was shocked, man. I was expecting pretty much a beatdown, and I saw exactly the opposite. And, with the way that these games are televised, the Cowboys games seem to always be on where I'm at. But, no, it was definitely a shocker game. It was a pretty good game, too. I will say that 1 o'clock game, the Panthers versus the Redskins, that was a back-and-forth game. Redskins holding down the stretch for the big win for them. Josh Gordon coming up with some big plays there. Definitely a breakout performance. How you feeling about those? I guess that's a statement win for the Redskins against the Panthers there.
Oh yeah, man. I'm loving that Redskin win. Me and the boy Bryce, we got the Hell to the Culture podcast. So we dove into the ins and outs of that win. And I'm looking forward now at this point to the Cowboys game. This is going to be huge, man, especially for the NFC East. The Redskins are currently a half game ahead. Philly and Dallas are tied at 3-3. I personally believe that Philly is still the team to beat in the NFC East. Super Bowl champs gotta keep that respect. I'm gonna give them that respect. But who's number 2? Who's really threatening the Eagles? I think we find out this Sunday when the Skins and the Cowboys play. How about you?
Man, that's going to be a big-time matchup. I'm excited to see what happens, so I'll leave my opinion to be determined after the game. But, based on how I see it right now, I'd have to give the Redskins the slight edge, although, you could say the same thing about Dallas, but definitely there's been some ups and downs for the Redskins. And there has been for each of these teams in the NFC East, so you never really know which team you're going to get. But the team that I've seen that's won those couple games, the game this week, the game against the Cardinals, the game against the Packers, that Redskins team is a darn good football team. When they're running the ball well and they're throwing the ball well, Alex Smith is out there doing his thing. they're tough to beat. I think it'll be a pretty fair matchup even, and we'll see what happens. I think it's a toss-up for me. Definitely excited to see that, though, man. But, yeah, NFC East pretty much wide open. Redskins lead it, but right behind them, Eagles and Cowboys are there at 3-3. Eagles had a big win this past week against the Giants. Pretty dominant win, 34-7. Another dominant, I should mention, dominant performance by Saquon Barkley. I don't know about you, but I'll say this, and this is probably going to be somewhat of a big statement, but I've been watching the Philadelphia Eagles faithfully for about 20 years strong. Game in, game out. I've seen my defense, and when you see great running backs, you see them against – I've been watching Saquon Barkley, throughout the season so far, and I've seen him look great. But it's a measuring stick. It's a test when you know what your defense looks like, So when I saw him running the way he was against my defense, and we had a pretty good run defense. Let's get it completely right. And Saquon Barkley, he made us look crazy, running around pretty much untouchable, too strong to get brought down, fast enough to break tackles and get out of the way, and also just ridiculously athletic, jumping over cats like Malcolm Jenkins. Saquon Barkley, oh, my God. I think he probably, in my time watching the Eagles, he might be the running back that I'm most afraid of as an opposing defense that I've ever seen against my Eagles, and that's about 20 years' worth of action that I'm talking about. I thought Zeke Elliott was pretty good. I mean, during the prime, obviously, Emmitt Smith, Tiki Barber was pretty good, but man, this guy Saquon Barkley is like a created player in Madden. Like, this guy's got like 99s across the board. I can't believe how dominant this guy was. And seeing it firsthand it's a scary thing. Luckily, the rest of their team is pretty much trash. But what do you think about Saquon Barkley in this week?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on Saquon. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview or foreshadow. I'm going to speak a lot on Saquon once we break down our gas top performers because, he had a hell of a game, even in an embarrassing loss because, like you said, the rest of that team is garbage. But so I heard you mentioning you were a little bit more afraid of Saquon than Zeke. What makes you – would you place Saquon above Zeke as a running back right now?
Actually, I would. To be honest, and I might be overreacting, but I think the only running back that I would say I would take above Saquon Barkley would be Todd Gurley. Saquon Barkley has looked very, very dominant, and that's with no offensive line, mind you. It's just because, the dominance. It's just like how many guys does it take to bring you down? I saw this one play. I saw at least 5 or 6 Eagles just flying across the field, and nobody was even close to bringing them down. You can't arm tackle him. You can't go too low on him because he can jump over you. You definitely can't go too high on him because this guy's like built like a horse. And he's like ridiculously strong, ridiculously fast across the board. Not only is he great between the tackles runner, he can cut it outside. He can get the ball out of the backfield. To me, I'll take Saquon Barkley over Zeke Elliott for sure, just because I feel like he's more of a dual threat. And I think if you put a good offensive line in front of him, and it's only going to get better for them. Right now, what I'm seeing from him, it's been pretty remarkable stuff. But I don't want to get too carried away. But yeah, right now I'll put him right there in the mix with all the top backs.
Rookie of the year?
Oh, no question. Rookie of the decade. Rookie of the decade, man. I haven't seen someone this dominant. Well, like I said, Zeke Elliott was good, but this is just another level, man. I think he's a legend in the making. If he can stay healthy for the next couple of seasons, watch out Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, man. But, yeah, man. And then last but not least, 2 teams I want to highlight. The Rams, the last of the undefeateds, 6-0, coming off a pretty tight game against the Denver Broncos. The Rams are now 6-0, continuing along their streak. Todd Gurley with a big day. We got to look ahead and wonder, now the last of the undefeateds, how good are these Rams and when will they finally catch this L? Jerome, what do you think about the Rams, man? You think they're going to make it no way undefeated season, but who's going to stop this team right now?
Well, I was looking ahead at the schedule, and I mean, I'm not going to call for an undefeated season. I think that's a little egregious, only 6 games in. But looking at the schedule, man, it's a possibility. So I marked down some notable games that I think they could take L's on, and I want to get your thoughts on it, and I'll tell you which ones I think they probably will lose. So they got a game against the Packers on October 28th. It's a home game. They play in New Orleans on November 4th. They got the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, on November 19th. At Chicago with that defense and Khalil Mack on December 9th. And they got your Philadelphia Eagles on December 16th. So I don't think any of those games you could just hand over to the Rams. I think those are going to be tough games to win. But of those games, I could see them losing in New Orleans to Drew Brees because I honestly think the Saints are, even though the Rams are incredible, I think the Saints are still the best team in the NFC. And that game on the road against the Bears in December, I know they just put on in Denver in the cold weather. I know it's the LA team. They got the best back in football, so that shouldn't affect them too much. But if Chicago's defense continues on the path that it's been on, that'll make that road game very tough. And then I like the game. I like the Rams' chances against Philly, but I'm kind of 50-50 on it because I'm still big on the Eagles. I know you guys haven't looked consistently great yet this season, but I'm still sold on the Eagles being the class of the NFC East and still up there as one of the top contenders in the whole conference. But the games I listed, man, does any of those stand out as potential losses to you?
Absolutely. The way I see it, man, the Rams, I see them as the best team in the NFC right now in terms of what we've seen so far. But I also know that football is a game of momentum. And, right now they've got the momentum, things rolling on their side, and the Eagles are just starting to gain that momentum. So by the time we do match up with them on, we'll say December the 16th, I think we'll have enough momentum to see what's really going on over there in L.A. But, that stands out to me. I mean, honestly, I could see them losing at least 2 or 3 games out of the stretch that we just talked about. To me, the streak ends against the Saints. They got the Saints away at New Orleans on November the 4th. I think that's the end of it. I think that's the end of the streak. If I had to take a wild guess, I think the Saints have everything that you need to contest with a team like this, high-powered offense, dual threat at running back. So I think that's where the streak ends. But if it doesn't end there, I'm leaving it up to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to put an end to the streak. Both of those games are must-see TV. Because we're talking about potential NFC Championship games, and then if the Chiefs and Rams keep playing the way they do, that's a potential Super Bowl matchup. So those 2 games highlight to me because there's no way the Rams are still undefeated by the time the Eagles play the Rams in December. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I have them losing to the Saints as well. And even if they somehow get past the Saints and the Chiefs, I mean, come December, it's going to be tough to just continuously win those games, especially in a cold weather place like Chicago. And I think Philly will be better by December too. So undefeated is probably out of the question, but this is probably a 13 or 14 win team for sure.
They do look like a 13 or 14 win team, and we'll see what it all comes down to in the playoffs. If they can maintain the winning that they've done, home field advantage looks like it's probably a good shot for them. But we'll see how things shake out down the stretch. And ultimately, you can be as good as you want in the regular season, as we've seen from guys like Phillip Rivers. But Jared Goff, ultimately, we're going to see what you're made of in that playoff. So, that's really where I'm going to really decide about these Rams. But, I don't see them going undefeated. But I'm definitely impressed with what I've seen so far. So talking about the Rams, you can't talk about the Rams without talking about the Chiefs. Big-time matchup this week for the Chiefs. They just came off a game in New England against the New England Patriots. Tom Brady, the greatest of all time in many eyes, going up against the young GOAT, the new GOAT, the hottest on the block right now is Patrick Mahomes, who's pretty much been torching the NFL, coming into the game very, very hot. But, something had to give here in this matchup. And despite losing the game, I was very, very impressed with what I saw from Patrick Mahomes, just because you didn't see the back down in him. He did not back down in that game. He brought the heat, and honestly, had there been a little bit more time on the clock, if Kansas City had the ball last possession of that game, they would have won that game. That's just how I see it. New England had the ball in the right moments towards the end of the game. They had just enough time. You got some time left. Tom Brady, get him in field goal range. You know what he's going to do. He's going to get you there. But Pat Mahomes, man, he looks great out there. Just really scratching the surface of his potential. But I love what I see from him. I think Brady, I don't think he threw shade, but I think he should give him a little bit more respect. This guy, Patrick Mahomes, is playing out of his mind. And I like the fact that they competed, and I think that come playoff time, if there's a rematch, we might see things go a different way. I think Andy Reid should be extremely excited and happy and proud of his team after what we saw there in New England.
Okay. All right. This is the part where some people might assume that I'm sounding like a hater or trying not to give Mahomes all his credit. So before I dive into what I want to say about Pat Mahomes, I will say this. He is incredible. If I was the Chiefs, I would have traded away Alex Smith too. He has everything, like you said. He keeps the fight. He comes out there and still slinging it. Everything that he's doing is great. But I want to slow down some of this GOAT talk just a little bit. So, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, I looked up some stats and information on my own last night, and because I was watching the game and I'm thinking to myself on that 75-yard bomb right before the Patriots got the ball back, Tyreek Hill might be the fastest man on the planet Earth. Tyreek Hill ran by the entire defense. And some people say, oh, it's nice. He can throw a 5-yard pass and Tyreek Hill can just take it all the way. That is true. He can also throw a 20-yard pass that doesn't need to be necessarily the most accurate because ain't nobody around Tyreek Hill. He's literally that far past everyone. He ran by McCourty. He ran by the other safety. It was ridiculous. So looking up some numbers, so far this season, Patrick Mahomes has 212 pass attempts, and 51 of those attempts have gone to Tyreek Hill. That's 24% of his targets.
Uh-huh.
Pat Mahomes has 1,865 yards passing. 367 yards have gone to Tyreek Hill. That's 30% of his yards. Pat Mahomes has 18 touchdowns. 33.3% of those touchdowns have gone to Tyreek Hill. 25% of the completions that Pat Mahomes has gone to Tyreek Hill. So as much as we're going to give Pat Mahomes credit, which I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, because he absolutely does deserve it. This is his rookie season pretty much. He only played one game last year. So this is essentially his rookie season. So I'm trying not to take anything away from Pat Mahomes. I just think in the pie of the Chiefs right now, we should give 50% Mahomes, 25% Reed, 25% Hill, because the greatness that is Mahomes isn't just a product of just his raw talent. A lot of this is Tyreek Hill's raw talent as well, and Andy Reid's just genius of scheming. So, I mean, Pat Mahomes is on an incredible level, but I think everyone just needs to keep in mind that Tyreek Hill is also on an incredible level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Tyreek Hill having a great season, big step up from last season. But I will say this also, and this is kind of like just how you see it. Tyreek Hill, big step up this season from last. Obviously, he was really good last season, but not at this level. Now, Alex Smith had the same offense, same weapons, same Tyreek Hill. So is it Tyreek Hill that took the big step up, or is it now that he's got a quarterback that can reach him downfield to make those big-time connections and give him the opportunity to show off the way he has? Because then you could kind of argue, I think they're both are part of the success there. And I think, people are, you're right, though. It's a quarterback-driven league. People tend to get all hyped up in the quarterback and forget about the guys catching the ball. Tyreek Hill, obviously, right now, he's playing at a great level right now, and he's killing the game in terms of the speed. But I don't know. It's kind of like, the chicken and the egg, you know what I mean? Because, he took a big step this year, and one thing that obviously happened is a change at quarterback. So I don't know who you want to give the credit to. Either way, there's definitely some credit needs to be given to these Chiefs right now. But I don't know, man, because, Alex Smith could have did that last year, but, something different happening this year over there in Kansas City. It just seems like a whole nother swag, you know what I mean? And I think this might be the year. It might not happen this year, but if you're Andy Reid and you've never won a Super Bowl, I think you're feeling pretty good with that guy leading your team under center.
Yeah, man, definitely. I would definitely give 50% of the credit to Pat Mahomes, which is going to be the majority. But I mean, let's keep in mind they were 5-0 last season with Alex Smith and lost, and now they're 5-1 this season. So it's kind of similar. But I do think Pat Mahomes was the right choice, though. He's younger and he's got the bigger arm, so I definitely would have went with Mahomes.
Well, I was impressed with how he responded in the tough game with against the Patriots. I think he saw the true competitiveness from him. You see the gamer in him, and I like what I saw. Little stat: quarterbacks 25 and under are 1-41 all time in regular season games played at Gillette Stadium. Little nugget for the day: the only quarterback 25 or younger to win one. No one will probably ever guess this, but I'll just say it anyway. Colin Kaepernick in 2012.
Ooh.
Random
How about
stat
that?
for you. Random stat
Yeah,
for
that's
you.
a good one.
Yeah, man. Shout out Colin Kaepernick out here still doing this thing, man. What else, man? So, yeah, I mean, I like what I see from Mahomes, man, but let's just put it all in perspective. You're right, man. People are getting a little crazy, getting a little carried away. I mean, he's hot right now. I get it. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, there's a few young quarterbacks in the NFL right now that are big-time players. So my question is, so we know that he's obviously a talented player, and we saw him go ahead and have one of the greatest of all time. Let's talk young quarterbacks in the NFL. Where does he rank with all the other quarterbacks? Because I got myself a little list here. There's some really good young talent in the NFL right now, and I'm very happy to see it. But if we're talking top 5 quarterbacks, like young quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks, you know, the next young up-and-coming class that's going to come and take over the league, where would you rank Patrick Mahomes in terms of the list? You know what I mean? Top 5 young quarterbacks. Jerome, what do you think right now? Best young signal callers in the NFL, where does Mahomes rank on your list?
All right, so best young signal callers in the NFL right now, I'm going to count it down from 5 to 1. At 5, I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. I know a lot of people probably think I'm bugging, but Sam Darnold has played pretty well for the Jets. It's not a complete team, but I'm a fan of Sam Darnold. And Deshaun Watson, man, I read an interesting stat on Deshaun the other day. He hasn't thrown an interception in 8 games, and he's been getting beat up, man. And Deshaun had that incredible run last season, so I think I'm going to give him some love. Number 3, I'm going to go with your Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, Carson Wentz. He's getting back to that MVP level he was at last season. And I'm actually going to rank Pat Mahomes at number 2, slightly above Carson Wentz because he's at that level that Wentz was at last season right now. And my number 1 is actually going to be Jared Goff. Now, I know a lot of people they're probably like, Jared Goff, like he's up there, but is he really number 1? My reasoning behind that is it's a quarterback-driven league. His team's undefeated. He's driving that team. I know a lot of that credit is going to go to McVay, as it should, but I think Jared Goff, man, he's been incredible, man. He's made some nice throws when he's needed to. He's got a lot of talent around him, and if he was failing with that talent around him, we'd bury him. So I'm going to go ahead and praise him a little bit here, man. So what do you think? Who's your top 5 youngest QBs?
All right, I'm going to proceed with caution when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, just because small sample sizes can be generally misleading, as we've seen from Ryan Fitzpatrick this season in the first couple of games. So I'm going to generally be a little cautious with this ranking. So, you know, forgive me in advance for this, but this is where I'm at with this. So I'm going to start from the bottom and then work my way up as well. So to be honest, man, I saw that there was 4 players that were the cream of the crop in terms of young elite quarterbacks. So my top 4 is really the bread and the butter, whereas this 5 is like kind of like the crust on the outside. I mean, you could say he's in the mix, but so I was having a hard time. I initially was going to go Baker Mayfield in my 5th spot, but I just thought it was too early to kind of put him in that, you know, give him that kind of title. I like what I saw from Sam Darnold, but to be honest, I don't know how I don't really love this quarterback class too much. But I'm going to give my number 5 spot to a guy who I criticized pretty badly. If you guys are following us on the site, I definitely ripped them this season. I thought they weren't going to be any good, but the Chicago Bears have actually turned into a pretty good football team. And it's not just the defense. Mitchell Trubisky, who's a guy who I saw last year as I didn't want to call him a bust too early, but he wasn't looking like the top quarterback in the draft, especially when Deshaun Watson was doing what he was doing. But Mitchell Trubisky has had a great season quietly for the Chicago Bears. He's, you know, turned it up for them. throwing touchdowns pretty much every week. You know what I mean? I think Mitchell Trubisky, especially with that coaching staff, with that defense on the other side of the ball, and he's got some weapons over there, I think Mitchell Trubisky has catapulted himself into the somewhat top tier of young quarterbacks. So I'll give a shout out to Mitchell Trubisky. Number 4 on my list. This one's a tough one because, like I said, like from 4 and up, it's tough. I just got to go with the eye test. Unfortunately, it's going to be Jared Goff for me, number 4. As good as he's been this season, I don't know. Maybe I still see that first season in my head, but Jared Goff, man, great quarterback. I like what I'm seeing, and it's pretty much a toss-up, really, from the rest of this list. But I like Jared Goff, but I don't like him more than I like the rest of these guys on the list. Great offense, great team around him, and I think he's going to succeed. So it's really no knock on him at all, but he's going to come in number 4 on my list. Next up, I got Patrick Mahomes here. Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to put him number 3 on the list. Just because it's a small sample size and I'm not ready to just crown the kid yet. Realistically speaking, based on what I've seen in him this game, he can easily have the number 1 or number 2 spot on this. But, you got to give yourself the opportunity to, take those L's and see what's going to happen. Because a big part of you as an NFL player is when you come into the game and you got teams that are keying in for you and they've seen what you can do and they try to take that away from you and you still perform. So we'll see. That remains to be seen. So for now, number 3 for me is Patrick Mahomes, but he could easily be number 1 or number 2. By the end of the season, he just might be. Let's see what he does for the rest of the season. 6 games in, I'm not ready to, jump out at the woodwork and say that he's the best quarterback out, but he's definitely in the conversation. So number 2 on my list, I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, people have criticized him a little bit this season, saying he's not doing that well. But besides last week, he actually had 2 big weeks back-to-back. I think he's starting to regain form, although he's a little banged up right now. This is just, again, eye test. I mean, last season when I saw what I saw from Deshaun Watson was a quarterback that looked like legendary. He looks transcendent. He looked it was like seeing something special for the first time. You know what I mean? It was like watching, Ray Allen hit that corner jump shot, you know what I'm saying, in the championship game. It was like watching LeBron put the team on his back in those, critical moments. It's like Jordan playing with the flu, you know what I mean? That's the kind of it factor I saw from Deshaun Watson last season. And I still see flashes of it this season, and I think that he's starting to round into form. So all in all, I like Deshaun Watson. I think this guy is potentially that kind of star in the making, like a Michael Jordan of the sport kind of deal. I think he's going to be a problem for years to come. So I might take some flack for putting him over some of the guys I did, but I like Deshaun Watson. I like him a lot. So that's my number 2 guy. Now, 13 games in, he's got about 28 TDs, in his career, young career. I mean, this season, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, probably not that impressive. So if you want to at me, go ahead, at me on Twitter, man. You give me the heat if you want to, man. Now, number 1 guy, and I'm gonna shake off the hometown bias here. But after looking at the numbers, man, I think it's pretty obvious to me he's number 1. I mean, you can argue, like I said, Jared Goff, you could easily argue be number 1, even though I had him at 4. But this is what I'm looking at. Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz is the best young quarterback in the NFL, and I'll tell you why. 17 games into his career. Well, he actually, first season, rookie year, I'm going to exclude that. But we're going to look at the last 17 games that he played. 4 this season, 13 last season. In the last 17 games, he's had 41 touchdowns. He's had over 4,000 yards in 17 games. It's basically a season. So that's why I'm comparing it. So interceptions. In those 17 games, 8 interceptions. That's why I had to put him ahead of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson in less games has thrown twice as many interceptions. So Carson Wentz, big-time player. The thing I love about Carson Wentz, 2 things. I love his, making up a word here, escapability. I love the way he scrambles around. I love the way he gets out of the pocket. I also think there's just something about Carson that's bigger than bigger than numbers, bigger than football. It's just a presence. Carson Wentz, you can say all the magic about what happened last season with the Philadelphia Eagles, but it all started somewhere. It started with Carson Wentz. It was this feeling of believing in the team. It was a feeling of knowing that you can do it. And when you have a quarterback that's out there throwing pretty much 4 touchdowns every game, you're pretty much got your offense on the bench by the time the fourth quarter comes around looking like Alabama. That's how they were playing last season, and that's the kind of infectious leadership that he brings where everyone really, really believes in the team. They believed in the team so much that even when he went down, he still stood on their sideline and, he took care of everything. You know what I mean? He took care of everything.
Yeah,
so I got to say Carson Wentz is one of the best.
Factor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, I want to go back to what you said at the beginning of it about it really being like a top 4 and the fifth guy being a crest. I got to piggyback that because as much as I like Sam Darnold, he is like I needed a fifth person and it was splitting hairs. But in the top 4, I mean, yeah, man, I agree with you because I went back and forth a lot about who I wanted at 1, and I kind of just went with Goff because of the team factor. But I like what you're saying about Wentz and the it factor, man, because that's what scares me the most as a fan of an opposing team. Wentz definitely has that it factor.
Yeah, I like I'm happy, man. I'm happy. I know a couple years ago, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Before we got Wentz, the Eagles, I didn't know about Wentz, I'm going to be honest with you, until the Combine and, the Senior Bowl. And, I started watching the guy's film, and I'm like, wow. He reminded me of like an Aaron Rodgers kind of guy. So I still see that in him. I think he's a great player. But besides that, man, I always loved Watson. Watching him in college, I knew Watson was going to be a great player. So, when we got Wentz, I was very happy, and I'm happy to see that, he's back and he's healthy, and I think he's going to start showing people again. Looks like the offense is ready to look like last year's Eagles offense, so we'll see what they're going to keep doing. But, yeah, I like Wentz. That's my number 1 guy, so I'm happy to say that. That's my top 5 young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. But, yeah, so piggybacking off of that, I know we've got some top 5 quarterbacks. I'm going to get into what we always do around this time. I want to talk top 5, our gas sports performers of the week. How about this, man? I'll lead off with my 5, and then you lead off with yours, because there's some heavy hitters on yours, and I think they deserve a little bit of the show, man. I think I'm gonna let you close it out. So let me jump into my top 5. Top 5 players for this week. Week 6, top player for me, Todd Gurley. Whoa, big time power back, killing the game. 2 touchdowns, 200 yards. I believe that's the first of his career, holding it down for the undefeated Rams. I got to give my hat off to Todd Gurley, killing the game right now. Number 2, probably could be number 1. I chose specifically here to choose Tyreek Hill, not Patrick Mahomes, because Tyreek Hill was the game changer of that game to me. Man, the way he cut across, he basically just did a crossing route and then cut across the entire defense. And Deron Harmon, who I went to school with, man, this guy is not short. He's not slow. He's not slow by any stretch. This guy used to play defensive back, played corner. This guy, he got past him. He turned around, tried to get him, and he looked silly, man. He had no chance to catch up to him. Tyreek Hill, man, like I said, man, you're fast when you're making fast people look slow. And Tyreek Hill is clearly just in a whole nother stratosphere in terms of speed right now. So Tyreek Hill, wow. Yeah, Tyreek Hill, that's my guy, top receiver this week. 3 touchdowns, 142 yards, huge game. So I'm putting Tyreek Hill on my list. Number 3 on my list, I got to give some props to a guy who I've been high on this whole season. He hasn't made the list yet, but I'm finally putting him on the list. Well-deserved. Sonny Michel. Big time player. He's had 100-yard performances in back-to-back games now for the Patriots, and he's looking like, the guy for them. Obviously, James White's in the mix too there, but Sonny Michel, 24 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looking like a really talented back, and he's only a rookie there. I can't remember the last time New England drafted a running back with a top pick, so it just lets me know that he must be the guy that's going to be the running back for them for the next couple of years because, if they're investing that high of a pick in him, they must think very, very highly of him. And if he's performing this well this early, I can only fathom to imagine what's going to happen later on down the stretch. I got to give him some props. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a flashback here. It's kind of crazy to see, but it was looking like it was 2012 in the building when we saw Frank Gore rush for 100 yards. But I'm going to put Frank Gore on my list. Shout out to Frank Gore. Man, Frank Gore playing for the Miami Dolphins looking like he was Miami Hurricanes Frank Gore. 100 yards, 15 carries. Man, I was loving that, man. And then they ended up getting the win. Boy, Kenyon Drake coughed the ball up on the one. Frank was not feeling that. He was looking on the sideline like, why am I not in the game? Looking like beast mode during the Super Bowl. But he said, all right, you know what? They ended up getting the ball back, and they ended up scoring and winning that game anyway. Frank Gore turning the clock back, just like one of those guys who just somehow always seems to be playing, always seems to find his way into a productive game. Frank Gore, I don't even know how old this guy is, but Jesus, man, he is still playing at a high level. Shout out Frank Gore, man. That's a good-ass sports performance right there, man. Old, wily vet on the list. And then last but not least, I got to give a shout-out to a defensive player. I was going to pick a player, but then I saw that, man, a defense is defined by a unit. A defense is defined by what you can do as a team. A true defense works with synergy amongst the entire unit. So I want to give a shout-out to the Ravens defense. Huge game, 11 sacks in the game. One player had 3 himself, but 11 as a unit, that's impressive, man. That's impressive. 11 sacks. I got to give a shout-out to the Ravens defense, and that rounds out my good-ass sports performances of the week, my top 5. Jerome, what you got on your side, man?
Before I start, I want to say I really like that Frank Gore pick, man. That was a good one. All right, so let me break this down real quick, man. My good-ass sports top 5 performers of the week. Number 5, I'm rocking with the boy James Conner. This is the second time in a row I've had him on the list. And 23 touches, 120-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm not saying Le'Veon Bell is an afterthought, but I'm saying he's making that transition for Bell coming back a lot easier. Number 4, I'm going to go with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has been balling, man. He is making Kirk Cousins look like a god. Adam Thielen had 11 catches, 123 yards, and another touchdown this week. I mean, he's underrated, too. People don't talk about him like he's one of the top receivers, and if you look at his numbers and his production, he's one of the top receivers. Number 3, I'm going to go with Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. He had 354 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and completed 75% of his passes. That's pretty damn impressive. Matt Ryan, to me, isn't an elite quarterback, but he is really, really good. He's probably like a step or 2 away from being elite. Number 2 on my list, I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon. He's one of the more forgotten running backs. But, I mean, nobody forgot about him yesterday. He had 3 touchdowns, 150 yards, all on 20 touches. I think he might have caught like a couple balls or whatever, but for the most part, he was impressive on the ground. 18 carries, well over 100 yards. And as impressive as he was with those 3 touchdowns, my number 1 good-ass sports performer of the week is Saquon Barkley. That boy is a beast. 22 touches, 229 total yards, only 1 score, but he probably would have scored more if Eli Manning wasn't his quarterback and his offensive line wasn't a high school level offensive line. All right, that was a bit much. They're a little bit better in the high school level, but my point is Saquon is doing a lot with a little, and that is why he is not only my number 1 on my top performer this week. I'm going to piggyback off what you said earlier in the show. Saquon is the second best running back in the league. I'm putting Todd Gurley above him solely off experience. Once Saquon has a full belt, by season end, Saquon Barkley will be the best overall running back in this game. He's proven that he was worthy of the number 2 pick. I don't know if the Giants should have been the team to pull the trigger on that pick. But, yeah, I can't say enough about Saquon. I'm actually very nervous. The Redskins played the Giants the day before my birthday, and last year on my birthday, Ezekiel Elliott ruined it by just eating up all the birthday cake, running for 150 on us. So hopefully Saquon don't give me a repeat of that up in New York when we go down there. But, yeah, man, Saquon has just been nothing but impressive, so he's definitely getting my number 1 gas performer of the week, even in an embarrassing loss, man. That's just all kinds of impressive to me.
Yeah, like I said, man, you ain't lying, bro. What I saw from Saquon Barkley was something special. So, yeah, with all due respect, I wanted to end off the top 5 section with Saquon Barkley because good goodness. You don't see stuff like that every day. But, yeah, definitely putting himself in the top tier of running backs early in his career. And it's only just beginning, man. Only just beginning. But, yeah, it's pretty much the majority of everything I wanted to cover for today. Last closing thoughts. It's Tuesday here. We're breaking off with the start of the the NBA season. We've been on the NFL season super duper hard, and now the NBA season's here slowly but surely. Just a small set of games tonight. We got the Sixers going up against the Celtics, and then we got the Thunder going against the Warriors. I want to just talk quickly about my 76ers, talk about the Celtics team. Both of these teams, young, talented teams. I think this is going to be a rivalry for years to come in the East. But now Celtics, after pretty much having a great season last year, making it all the way up to the conference championship, they have returning 2 All-Stars, Gordon Hayward back off that gruesome injury last season, and then Kyrie Irving back after injuries down the stretch where he missed the entire playoffs, the postseason. They look obviously great. They beat the Celtics. They beat the 76ers last season without either of those guys, and now you add them back to the lineup. So you have to be wondering what the 76ers could possibly do to keep up. Now, with the 76ers, I also want to say this. You got to trust the process, as they have been doing. And in the team of the super team era of the NBA, it's very easy to see a team like the Celtics all stacked up. And, obviously they have a great team. And you add 2 more players to that team, and with the young talent they already have, they're going to be tough to beat. But it seems like these days, man, the people want to jump on the team that's got the most weapons, and it's very easy to do that in this day and age. But what happened to building your team the good old-fashioned way? So that's why I want to talk about the 76ers, building this thing the good old-fashioned way, brick by brick, every day coming in, working harder than the next day, and you got young, transcendent players like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. I'll say one thing. Yeah, the Celtics have more pieces from top to bottom. Yes, they have a deeper team, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to young players in the NBA, there's 2 guys on that team that I'd take above any of those guys. So I think the most highest ceiling for these guys out of all these players on these 2 teams, I think Joel Embiid has that. Joel Embiid not get enough respect for his defensive ability, but he's a all-defensive team kind of center, and he's also a straight monster on the offensive end. This guy is awesome because he can get down the post, he gets right. He led the NBA in post scoring last season, and he also is a not shy 3-point shooter at all, pulling out the stretch, stretching the defense out here doing his thing. He can put the ball on the floor, man, and most of all, the guy's just fun. He has a good time out there. I love Joel Embiid, and I'm excited to see him take a big step forward this season. Ben Simmons, I think he's going to take a major step forward this season. I think he's going to be more and more LeBron-like every game. And then worth mentioning, this is a big game here for Markelle Fultz. I don't want to overhype the guy. I know, he's had a little bit of a negative pressure on him because of what happened last season, but Markelle is going to get the start tonight for the 76ers over J.J. Redick, so they're going to be starting both him and Ben Simmons, a lineup that lacks a bit of shooting, and people are going to see really what's really going on with Markelle Fultz tonight. I'm excited to see that, especially against the Celtics, the team that traded away the rights to for that number 1 pick, and a lot of people saying that they got over on the 76ers when they picked Jason Tatum with the 3rd pick, and now with the extra pick in this draft coming up, which could end up being the top 3 pick, to be honest, the Sacramento pick. So Markelle Fultz, a little bit of pressure on him, but I'm excited to see what he does tonight. I still have faith in Markelle Fultz, still have faith in what he's going to do, but I'm excited to see the 76ers on prime time, man. Definitely excited to see them on prime time.
It should be an exciting start to the season, man. I'm excited about that Warriors game tonight. Definitely excited to see LeBron out in L.A., man, see what he does with those young boys. This is a good time to be a sports fan, man.
It is a good time, man. It's probably one of my favorite times in sports when the NBA season is starting and the NFL season is going on at the same time. The only other time that I could probably say is just as fun is probably Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the season where the playoffs kick up, I mean, that's also a great time. But, yeah, when you get both NBA action and NFL action, it's like you can't help but feel like, you're in a great place in sports, especially after a long summer with no NFL or no NBA action, all due respect to baseball. But, this is the time when sports is really great. Plus, you've got postseason in baseball right now, too. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
that's what
great
I was
time in
about to
sports.
say. This is definitely my favorite time of year. Football's in full swing. NBA's starting. You got postseason baseball. Even though me as a National fan, I'm not really enjoying it, but,
Yeah, man, I definitely get that, man. But, I mean, yeah, it's a great time in sports right now, man. Thanks for everybody for listening to us today. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. That is Good Ass Sports Network. Also, if you're on Instagram, Twitter, be sure to follow us at Good Ass Sports. Also, follow us at Gas Sports Cypher. And if you haven't already, check out the Hail to the Culture podcast, also available on YouTube and goodassports.com. Man, doing a big thing for the D.C. area. If you don't know, they already know, creating a big-time buzz in the D.C. streets and big-time following there. Shout out to Jerome, who's one of the hosts for that show. Also, be sure to stay tuned to our website, goodassports.com, providing you with all the latest content in the NFL, NBA, and the boxing world. Again, you know what time it is. We are Sports for the Culture. Signing out.